every once in a while, somebody goes into remission from my disease, but not very often. So if I look at the studies, which are very few because it's a very rare disease, um, I might as well just put myself in a wheelchair now.
Renee, how did you find carnivore?
Out of desperation. I was diagnosed with my second autoimmune disease in 2019, and I was on chemo and I was getting sick all the time. Well, it wasn't like chemo; it's a immunotherapy, which basically takes away your immune system, and the side effects are a lot like chemo. So I'd been on that for a couple of years and just was tired. I had COVID twice this year. I had the flu, I had pneumonia, I had missed months of work because of the side effects of the treatment, not because of my disease. So I came to carnivore in desperation. It was the last thing I hadn't tried yet. So I tried it, and it's been the most amazing thing I've done with my life.
So, just going going to the autoimmune disease, I mean, being diagnosed in 2019, that was probably the most turbulent time to be diagnosed with, or the beginnings of the most turbulent time to be diagnosed with something so big, right?
Yes, it was not a great thing. So the autoimmune disease that I have is a subcategory of Guillain-Barré, and it's called chronic inflammatory demyelinating polyneuropathy. Mouthful. It's an autoimmune neuropathy. My body, my immune system is eating the myelin sheaths of the nerves in my arms and legs. So it's a lot like what MS does, but it does it in the brain, and mine does it in my extremities. So I actually, in 2 days, will be my fifth anniversary from my symptoms starting. On November 13th, 2019, I got up and I worked out. At this time, I was in my early 40s. I worked out 6 days a week. I thought I was doing everything right. I wasn't drinking. I wasn't smoking. I had quit everything, and I was a vegan. I thought that I was doing everything exactly the way I needed to be. I got up, I worked out, I went to work. I'm a nurse. And I went to work and I worked for 8 hours, came home, and I was trying to peel shrimp because we were trying to add a little bit of protein back into our diet because vegan wasn't really doing it. And I couldn't peel the shrimp. My hands wouldn't work. By the next day, I had such severe weakness on the left side of my body that I couldn't walk. It developed really fast. I was lucky I had a neurology appointment that Friday anyway because I have migraines and a facial spasm, which I'm sure you'll see. And so I was lucky to get neurology. I was lucky to get into the neurologist right away. They couldn't figure it out. The whole month of December, I was tested and prodded and poked, and everything was done. And unfortunately, in that same month, my husband got really ill. And I'm not afraid to say that I'm sure it was COVID, even though COVID wasn't here yet. He was so sick. He broke ribs, coughing. And so my poor little children, who were teenagers, had to take care of us. And so they cooked whatever they could cook. So we went back to eating an American Standard Diet at that point because there was no other option. I wasn't going to be able to cook. I was so sick. I didn't get diagnosed until it was late January, early February. I ended up going through two neurologists and a rheumatologist. And finally, the rheumatologist just was like, you have fibromyalgia. We'll see you later because I can't figure out what's wrong with you. And I said, this isn't fibromyalgia. I'm not tired. I just can't move my body. And so I saw the second neurologist, and he did a Hail Mary, drew some extra labs that hadn't been done yet, and found my diagnosis. So I immediately started getting treated with high dose IVIG. And the week that I got my high dose IVIG was the week that we set up incident command at our hospital for COVID. And did I mention I'm a nurse? I've been a nurse for 21 years. I was the director of patient care at our hospital. So it was a really bad week for me to have to be in an infusion clinic for 8 hours a day for the whole entire week. But I did. And so I remember trying to fight the Benadryl because I had to get Benadryl before the IVIG because your body doesn't want it. And trying to fight the Benadryl as I'm trying to be on calls with the hospital and try to be in these meetings. It was awful. But halfway through that week, I was able to start walking again. So it worked. So I got that week's worth. It lasted about 2 weeks, and then it wasn't working again. So they wanted to do a whole nother 5-day cycle, but at that point I couldn't miss work anymore. I needed to be at work. So we did 1 day a week for 5 weeks, which is not orthodox, but it worked. I actually kind of went into a little bit of remission. I had a good year and a half in there I still had pain. I still had weakness. I still went to a really short haircut because I couldn't brush my hair anymore. There were days my husband had to wash my hair for me because I have no strength still in my arms, very little strength. But I've had a buzzed haircut for the last year and I'm growing it back. So I'm doing a little better. So I got the treatment. By this time, I'm on the max dose of gabapentin. So as much gabapentin as a human being can take. And I'm just started weaning off of that. I had to add duloxetine and nortriptyline to the gabapentin to see if it would work better. So I'm not like completely in remission. I'm just able to do okay. So it came time that I wasn't doing okay, and I went and got another dose of IVIG. So it's 5 days again. During COVID, that first year was the hardest year of my life because I had to work like 80 hours a week. I can't tell you the emotional side of being a nurse and having to deal with COVID and watching what happened in our hospital and watching what happened with our patients. So my disease feeds off stress. Absolutely 100% feeds off stress. So it was not a good year. My poor kids, like I feel so bad that they had to live through that year with us too, because of course then they couldn't go to school. So they were doing school from home that entire year too. So fast forward, I got another dose of IVIG. Halfway through this week of IVIG, I got atypical meningitis, which is a side effect that can happen from it. So I ended up in the ER on Wednesday night of that week. I could barely lift my head. The pain was incredible. They were able to treat it with a bunch of steroids and get me to where I could go home. They continued my IVIG that week, and I just had huge amounts of steroids before it. At that point, my neurologist decided that I couldn't handle a high dose. That was basically failing the treatment. So he went to once a month. So I did once a month for a while, and it just wasn't holding the pain. And it wasn't, by this time I'm walking with a cane now because the weakness on the left side of my body is so profound that I was falling. Like I would just stand up and fall when I went to walk. Like my feet, I didn't know where my feet were. I don't know. It was the weirdest thing. So I start walking with a cane, and I'm still director of patient care at the hospital. I'm still getting my butt up to go to work 5 days a week. I'm working a little bit remotely at this point because there was just no way. So he decided to put me on rituximab. Rituximab is a monoclonal antibody that was made for lymphoma. It goes in and kills all your B cells. And unfortunately, when it kills the B cells, it kills the immune system too. So I had a hard time fighting things off. The rituximab worked. The first dose I had an allergic reaction like 10 minutes into it, which is not unnormal. Had to give me more Benadryl, thought I was going to die. It was an awful experience. The first dose was not fun, and I would never want to go back and do that again. I was a chemo nurse for a couple of years, and I gave rituximab like almost every day. I look at my patients now and I just feel, I feel so sick for I feel so sad. Like I had no idea what we were actually doing to them because we don't see the going home and seeing what happens afterwards. I mean, it took me out for 5 days every single time I had it. I got to the point, my son went into the Space Force in January, and we went to his graduation in March in Texas, and I came home with COVID. And I was so tired of being sick. So my husband, as I'm laying on the couch dying, and he had COVID too, but he was already going back to work. He was fine, but I was not. He says, "Hey, watch some carnivore videos today. Look up the carnivore diet." Because he'd been telling me, like, this is what we need to do. And him and my son have been hounding me, like, come on, let's try carnivore. Let's try carnivore. I was like, no way. There's no way you can live on just meat. I mean, I had a salad for lunch every single day for my entire adult life. So I was like, all right, I'll just watch it. I'll get you off my back. The first video I pulled up was Carrie Mann doing his 9 month um, check in, and he was phenomenal, running all over the place. His energy was incredible, and he showed what he was like to what he was. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll watch another one. So I ended up, I don't know how I got so lucky. I found Michaela Peterson's TED Talk, which I guess is pretty buried. And I was lucky that it came up. I thought, after I watched her, I thought, if she can do that with our rheumatoid arthritis, there's no reason why I can't do this with my autoimmune disease. And I mean, this was my second autoimmune disease, because I got idiopathic gastroparesis. I was diagnosed back in 2010 with that. So my stomach hasn't worked in 14 years. So I thought, I'm going to give this a try. And I text my husband, and I was like, if you don't want to do this, you tell me now, because I'm going down the rabbit hole. And then I discovered Dr. Ken Berry and Dr. Chafee, and that was it. I was hooked. I spent 2 weeks laying on the couch, dying of COVID, watching carnivore videos. The only thing I regret is not starting carnivore the day that I saw those videos, because I was like, no, we have to use up all the food in our house. We're not going to throw it all away. So it took us a little bit of time. So on March 20th, I started carnivore. And within
And
2
sorry, that
weeks,
was this year.
yes, that was this year. So we are getting ready to celebrate our 8th-month anniversary. 2 weeks into it, my pain levels, which had been a 9 out of 10 most of the time, even when I would come home from work and smoke pot right away to try to get, I tried everything. Never could control my pain levels. But then a couple of weeks of being on carnivore, and I did go lion. Like, I totally, I said, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. And within 2 weeks, my pain was like a 0 to 2. I mean, it was that fast. And I had been almost 5 years of fighting this pain. So I remember laying in bed one night, and when I realized my feet were on fire, because when you lay down and you take that moment to just relax, that's when you feel all the pain, like truly feel it, because you've through the day you just kind of deal with it. You have to do what you have to do. And I'm laying there, and I was like, oh my gosh, my feet are on fire. Like, I don't want to cry. Like, my feet aren't hurting. And so at that point, if that was the only thing that carnivore would have done, I would have stayed carnivore for the rest of my life anyway, just for the pain control. Within a month and a half, I noticed that my anxiety and depression were gone. And I had my first part of my life when I was 14. And then I went through it again in my early 20s. And this was the first time in my entire life I didn't feel that. I mean, I took Xanax for years because I couldn't turn my brain off, and the anxiety. About this time in February, before I actually went on carnivore, I had applied for a medical retirement from the hospital. I decided that there was just no way I could continue to work. I was working at this point. I am working almost 100% remote, and I'm the director of patient care. I can't really do my job not being in the hospital, but I was very lucky to have an administration that supported me and knew what I was going through. And they were much more supportive after I applied for my retirement, knowing that the end was going to come. So it took until July for my retirement to get approved. But in the meantime, my husband and I started flying back and forth from Hawaii. We were living in Hawaii, and we knew that the medical care, I was maxed out. If rituximab stopped working, I didn't have any place else to go. So we knew we needed to get to clinical trials, and we needed to get to someplace where I could have better health care. And I love Hawaii. We did the best that we could do, but we don't have that kind of stuff there. So we started looking at houses in Southern Arizona. And I have been scared to fly. I think that when my son was 2, he got epilepsy, and we had to fly back and forth from our island to the children's hospital all the time. And I think that's when I started getting scared to fly. Because I was in the Air Force, and I didn't have a fear of flying when I was in the Air Force. So it had to have been like putting that emotional trauma with flying. So I realized it used to take me 2 milligrams of Xanax to get on a plane. I had to knock myself out for the entire flight. I was getting on these flights to Arizona with no meds. and I was having no panic attacks. And I'm like watching movies with my husband on the plane and stuff. I had, it was phenomenal for the first time for my son is 20 now. So 18 years, I could actually get on a plane and not have a panic attack. So all this is happening. I find this carnivore zen, and through the whole moving 5 animals, and our entire house and retiring. I mean, and my youngest son left for college. So, like, in the matter of like months, we did all of this. I retired and we moved, and my son went away, and I became an empty nester. I was okay with it. No panic attacks, no anxiety. In fact, my stepmom, she and my dad had to fly out to help us get all the animals because you have to have a seat for every animal. So they flew out to Hawaii to help us come back. And she's like, "How are you not freaking out? How are you not like, what is going on with you? I'm freaking out. Why are you not?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Oh, we're going to get there. I have no doubt." Um, so all these things are happening. My cane, I finally found it. I had lost it. It's in the back of my car. I found it yesterday. So I haven't used my cane in, I don't know, a month and a half, 2 months almost, like at all. Um, my pain is under control. Um, I I don't even know how to explain it. And this was all because, and I've added food back in, like I have dairy. I do drink coffee, but mostly I eat beef, bacon a couple times a week, and I eat pemmican all day long, like really high fat, because fat is going to be what heals my nerves. And I'm happy to say that I just had labs done and everything looks amazing. My doctor couldn't be happier with everything on my labs. Now I have to say my doctor is carnivore, so he was okay with the LDL and the cholesterol, but my triglycerides are perfect. My HDL is perfect, and I eat a tub of butter like every month, like a huge tub of butter. I eat butter with every bite of food that goes in my mouth, because that's what's going to heal
Wow.
my nerves.
Congratulations. That's amazing. And
That was a
so
lot of info, huh?
you can just get around without the cane, without assistance at
Mhm.
all, no problem now.
Yep. My only my only complaint that I still have, so I'm weaning off a gabapentin right now. I have a lot of pain that came back just because I'm reducing my doses of gabapentin. That that's going to be residual pain. It's going to be there for a little while, and then eventually it'll go away. And my weakness. Most of the doctors that I talk to that support this say that it could take years for that to completely reverse. I mean, it's a lot of damage. I'm reversing a lot of damage that's been done to all of those nerves. So that's why the high fat, really high fat. I try to be 80% fat. And people think that being on carnivore, it's easy to be 80% fat. That is not easy. It is a full time job to make sure I get 80% fat in.
So day to day, what does an 80% fat diet look like?
So my husband makes my pemmican for me. And for those who don't know, pemmican is we dehydrate beef and make flour out of it, and then we mix it with beef tallow, actually rendered beef fat. Um, I'm learning there's a difference between tallow and beef fat, rendered beef fat. So we take the rendered beef fat and we mix it. Usually, when you make a pemmican, it's like a 1-to-1 ratio. My husband makes it 2-to-1 for me, so it's 2% tallow and 1%. And so I eat that through the day, and then we mostly ribeyes, and because that gives you the best fat. And every single bite of ribeye I take, I have like a pat of butter that goes on it. So I not only am eating the fat in the ribeye, but eating the fat on top of that. Everything we eat, we try to cook in fat, either tallow or butter. I when we make bacon 2 pounds at a time, and it lasts my husband and I like an hour. So, but high fat it's difficult to figure out how to get 80% fat in there.
I remember speaking to someone who it's even, he might be 90% fat in his diet. And when you looked at his plate, he showed me a picture of his plate, and it was literally a plate of fat. You know,
Yeah.
it's yeah, and you think, yeah, that takes quite a bit of effort to actually put that together.
It very much does, but it's worth it. Um, if I can continue, my neurologist, the thought was if I continued down the path I was going, I would be in a wheelchair by the time I was 50. Um, and if this is what happens and I have to make an effort to eat that much fat every day, um, my bowl of meat is like half butter, half fatty meat. And I'm not even quite sure that I get to 80% some days, but I sure try.
Yeah. And doesn't this kind of go against all the training you ever had as a nurse?
Yes. Yes. That was the hardest part of doing this was going from allopathic medicine to where this is, I mean, I was very lucky at work. Everybody supported my, all the nurses I worked with, all the doctors, they all supported this because they watched me go from, I was a nursing supervisor at a hospital running around 12 hours a day to disasters and fixing things and doing all that, to walking with a cane and barely being able to get from my car to my office. So they had watched that progression. So when I said, "Hey, I'm going to try carnivore and see what it does," everybody rooted for me, even the people, because it's a high fat keto, right? And by this time, a lot of doctors are looking at high fat keto and saying, "Hey, wait, there's something to be said about doing that." And so I had a lot of support, but yeah, my nurse brain, I had a really hard time reconciling with it to begin with, which is why it took a couple weeks to do it because I went back and forth. I'm like, oh, and um, looking at it now, so I actually, it brought me to my new calling in life, and I'm in school right now to become a board certified nurse coach in holistic and functional medicine. I want to coach people through, that first couple of months of carnivore or high fat keto are difficult months. Transitioning your body from an American standard diet or any standard diet, the world standard diet, to high fat keto and carnivore. It is tough. And so I want to be that cheerleader that can get them through that. And um, I feel like, I have to make something good of this. I can't, right now, I couldn't go back to the bedside and be a nurse. I don't have the strength yet to do that. So I'm only 47. I'm not going to sit at home retired. That's just crazy. I can't do that. So I will help. My goal is to help other people. And I really would like to, get in with the VA. That is my goal. We have so many veterans that are suffering from PTSD and depression and anxiety and all of these other things and have no hope. And our suicide rates of our veterans in our country is absolutely insane. And even in active duty, my son is active duty, and I have to welfare check with him just to make sure he's okay because it's insane. And so I would love, that's my ultimate goal, is I would love to get in with the VA, and help coach veterans into the natural state that our brain should be in, which is feeding off of fat and not off of sugar.
Yeah, because when people are suffering so much, like someone would be if they're having PTSD or something like that, and they're going to the doctor, and they're just being told, take these meds, eat a regular diet. It's like just making, I would imagine, just making the problem worse.
Right. And they're not even talking about diet. And there's no conversation about food. My whole illness, in fact, when I was diagnosed with gastroparesis back in 2010, it's idiopathic. They think that I got it from a virus that I got exposed to at the hospital, from a patient. And gastroparesis means the stomach no longer moves. So when you eat, the food just stays and it does not go through the stomach. You would think gravity would work, but gravity doesn't really work very well. I ended up hospitalized. I ended up weighing like 110 pounds. I was out of work for 3 months. My doctor said I had to gain 15 pounds to go back to work. Um, what I was told by my gastroenterologist was, he called me on the phone and I'm driving and he says, so your gastric emptying test came back. You definitely have gastroparesis. He said, we don't know a lot about idiopathic gastroparesis. We don't know what to do about it. So you just need to eat white food, ice cream, white flour, stuff like that, because it goes to the stomach easier than anything else. Stay away from vegetables, stay away from meat. And that's what I was told. And at the time that I was diagnosed, there was one book written about it, and that was it. There was nothing. I mean, there really was no information out there. I researched it and couldn't find anything. So I ate crap food because that's what I was told to do. I have my gastroparesis now. I have no symptoms at all. The meat has no problem going through my GI tract, and I have not had any problems since I went carnivore. So what I was told was absolutely wrong. And that's awful, because how many times have I told my patients over the last 20 years to eat the wrong stuff because that's what we're taught. And we're not really taught nutrition. I mean, our nutrition, we're taught very little and we know very little. I mean, truly, we know very little about nutrition. So I, if I could go back, the last 14 years, if I had done carnivore then or high fat keto, I may not even be where I am today. I have no doubt. So this has definitely changed the trajectory of my entire life.
Yeah. The thing is, it's so radical, in terms of the just the everyday, that there's just no way you would have even considered it 14 years ago, right? Because it would just have been, no, well, I feel fine. Why would I change my diet from, because you were vegan, right? And why would
I
I
was
suddenly go to 80% animal fat?
When I got gastroparesis, I was just on American Standard Diet.
Ah, okay.
That was where my madness of diet started, though, because I tried the Whole30. I tried Atkins. I went through everything: Mediterranean, pescatarian. I went through it all, and I ended up, none of it really worked. The best I felt was high fat keto. And I kept kind of coming back to high fat keto until I decided, you know what, I'm going to go vegan. Maybe vegan will do it, but it didn't. And I I should have, when I got to high fat keto and I actually felt a little bit better, I should have stopped there. But you're always looking for that next best thing. I had been sugar free for like 6 years though. Like I really did stay away from the sugar. I knew that the sugar was bad. But I I make a really great sourdough bread. Um, and we ate carbs and ate all of that. So hindsight, right? When my son was diagnosed with epilepsy when he was 2, so that would have put us in 2006, 2007 timeframe. The neurologist actually brought up high fat keto for him, um, and suggested that we put him on a high fat keto. So once again, the nurse in me was like, absolutely, positively not. But they did it in such a way that they would put them in the hospital and they would actually monitor their ketosis until they got to where they needed them to be. And then that would be a therapeutic level. And I was, I couldn't do it. That nurse and me. And so we fought his epilepsy for years. He was maxed out on meds, and hindsight, maybe it would have worked and maybe we should have done it, but you're so scared because you're taught so much. Child of the 80s, I was born in the late 70s, all non-fat. I mean, grew up not eating fat and trying to stay away from it. So who knows what could have happened.
Right. So, does your son manage the epilepsy now with a keto diet?
He actually outgrew the epilepsy and he's in the military now. He is a carnivore as much as he can be. It's hard when you're in the military, when you can't cook all your own meals and stuff. And so he tries really hard. He has a little kitchenette in his dorm, and he goes to Costco and he buys primal cuts of ribeye, and he cuts his own meat, and he tries his hardest. He eats bacon and eggs for breakfast every day, and um, I'm very proud of him. He has not only when he started the seizure meds, it made him really a heavy. He grew up with a weight problem. He was really overweight, and it's not like we ate awful. I mean, I grew up meat and potatoes, so my kids ate low fat. We had chicken, low fat pork, some kind of starch, and a vegetable for dinner every night. I mean, we ate a normal American Standard Diet. And he had weight issues when he wanted to join the military. When he was a senior in high school, we were applying to colleges, and he came up to us one day and was like, I don't want to go to college. I want to be in the military. And so we supported that. I was in the Air Force. His dad was in the Air Force. My husband is Army. I mean, we're all military. And so we're not surprised he wanted to do that. Unfortunately, he couldn't get into the Marines, which is what he wanted to do, because of migraines. He had a history of hemiplegic migraines. I think they kind of went around with the epilepsy. The epilepsy didn't stop the military, but the migraines did. So he ended up getting into the Air Force, and then they recruited him to the Space Force. So he's in the Space Force now. But the weight problem is completely gone. In fact, I'm trying to convince him he needs to eat more fat, because I think he's a little too skinny now. But that didn't happen until he went meat. Like, we could not get his weight under control no matter what we did. And remember, all those diets we tried, he had to do them all with us. I wouldn't let my kids not be on the same food, whatever I was eating. So when we were vegan, they were vegan. When we were Whole 30, they were Whole 30, and never could get his weight under control. But he is eating meat now, and primarily only meat, and he has no weight problem anymore.
It's really awesome to hear, and it's the amazing thing is that this way of eating goes against all the guidelines we've ever been taught, as you alluded to. And yeah, I grew up in the 80s as well, and yeah, I just remember low fat everything, and
Yep.
um, but so this way of eating goes against everything except the response of your body. The
Right.
the response of your body is, yeah, this is right. This is the right thing. You're doing the right thing. But everyone will tell you, no, 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 it's wrong. No, this is not right.
Right. As they're putting a donut in their mouth. Right. I mean, that's the crazy thing, is the people who tell me, "Oh my gosh, you shouldn't be doing this." I look at what they're eating, I'm like, "Well, you shouldn't be eating that sugar. And that sugar is what's killing you. The meat is not killing me." But one thing that is a huge testament to what this has done. So my husband, I destroyed my husband through all of these diets, because when we first got together, we've been together since 2012. He was skinny, um, not like underweight skinny, but he was skinny. His numbers, his cholesterol, everything was always better than mine. But he ate butter and bacon and all that stuff all the time, and I made him stop. I'm like, you can't have all that stuff. And so over these years of doing diets with me, he went from 150 pounds to 212 pounds. And he's only 5'7", so 212 pounds is heavy. He developed type 2 diabetes. He went on metformin, and had depression, no energy, wanted to sit on the couch all the time, all that stuff. So as of today, he on the scale this morning was 165. He is not on metformin. His type 2 diabetes is gone. We just had his labs drawn. His labs are absolutely perfect. Um, he has energy. I mean, he's out doing things in the yard all the time. We bought 10 acres, so he has to go do things, and he's always out doing things. Like, it's everything changed in him as well. We are two new people. And we're discovering each other again, because we are truly not the same people that we were 8 months ago.
Yeah, it's amazing. So I've got one question that I keep thinking about. So the 80% fat. If my diet was 80% fat, I would probably be in the bathroom a lot. Did you, has this been an issue for you, or is
Mhm.
this perhaps something that helped with the gastroparesis?
It my bathroom issues are still issues. When I figure it out, I'll let you know. Um, I asked Dr. Barry last week about it because I'm still, I go from constipation to, I can't believe that on 80% fat, I get constipated. And so I go from constipation to the runs and back and forth, and I'm trying to treat it with magnesium. So I'm trying to find that happy dose of magnesium citrate that will actually help it. I don't, I would rather have the runs than constipation. And um, I think that that's my bowels. I just have so much damage from all these years of all those salads and everything on top of the gastroparesis and everything else. So, yeah, I wish I could tell you that just 80% fat keeps me regulated, but it doesn't. I have to add magnesium on top of it. And my fat adaptation, that took that took months. I had to start supplementing with lipase. I it was That's why I say the first couple months were so difficult. My diarrhea was so bad. I actually went from 143 pounds down to 118 pounds in that first 2 months, which is not good because I wasn't absorbing things. It was just going straight through me because I hadn't eaten fat my entire life. So those first couple of months were difficult, but the pain was under control. So I wasn't going to quit. I just had to figure it out. So what I discovered is that being a part of a community is huge, especially when you're going through those the first transition period. So I joined the steak and butter gang with Bella, and that really helped having the support. I got a coach, so I worked with Coach Emily, and it helped to have that support, and it helped to have people say, "Hey, you can do this. Don't give up. Like, try this. This worked for me," and I made it through that. I now belong to two groups. I belong to Healing Humanity with Carrie Mann, and I moderate one of his groups on there, and it's absolutely phenomenal. And then I also belong to Dr. Barry's group, the Proper Human Diet. Um, so I still have that support. I'm only 8 months into this journey that's going to be the rest of my life, and I think that having people behind you and cheerleading, and I think that cheerleading other people also helps. But that was a long answer to your yes. I still have bowel problems.
Yeah, just finding that balance with the magnesium is difficult as well because you overdo the magnesium and you give yourself the same problem, right?
Right? I'm lucky that I'm retired right now because I don't have to go anywhere if I don't want to.
Yeah. Um, so I mean, this is the way, as you say, this is the way you're going to live going forward. There's no going back, right? Um, so how would you recommend someone get started with this? Let's say they see you doing much better. They want to try it themselves. What would you say would maximize someone's success when they're getting started?
If they're starting for an autoimmune condition, which is a lot of what people are trying to heal, and autoimmune diseases are just inflammation in our body. Our body goes wrong when it's inflamed. I would highly recommend going lion, full on. Just get rid of everything and do beef, water, salt. It gets rid of it. That is the true elimination diet. And and sometimes people don't want to do beef. I stick to ruminant animals. The only thing that I eat that doesn't come from a ruminant animal is beef or bacon. Um, and you just can't give up bacon. I mean, that's the best part about being a carnivore, um, is the bacon. But that first couple months when I just did beef, water, salt, I saw phenomenal changes. And I was talking to my dad this morning. I've been working on my dad. um, he had a stroke a couple years ago from a carotid artery that is clogged, and I'm working on him. But there's still some hesitation there because of the cholesterol. You freak out. It's in their heads that they can't have that high cholesterol, and he's on statins and doing everything his cardiologist says. So I work on him all the time, and he can't put his head around. He's like, this morning, so what about tomatoes? I'm like, Dad, get rid of the tomatoes. Tomatoes are going to kill you anyway. And it's hard to wrap his head. So I'm working on him for high fat keto. I'm like, all right, don't get rid of your vegetables yet. If you don't want to, I'm telling you, go read the studies that were buried about vegetables and you won't eat them ever again anyway. But I said, go high fat keto. If you're not ready to go carnivore, then there's nothing wrong with going high fat keto. Get your brain in ketosis. I mean, we were born in ketosis. We're supposed to be in ketosis. We should have never left it. I told him, you don't see a lion out there eating sourdough bread and a potato. Like, stop it.
I'm sick of these gazelles. What else is there?
Right. Let's go bake some bread. Um, you don't see it. So I'm trying to convince him. If I can get him to do it, then I can get almost anybody to do it. I am not there yet. He's not there yet. My mom, though, is in hospice from scleroderma. We're an autoimmune disease family. All of us have something. And she's been in hospice off and on for 10 plus years for the scleroderma. And you're only supposed to live 5 years with it. And she's at almost 15 years. So she's doing good there, but she is a soda addict and a sugar addict. And hi, Mom, I love you. I know she watches all of my interviews. Her and her husband are going carnivore. They're in this slow transition. It's hard when you've drank soda your whole entire life and you have all that sugar and stuff. But I told her, she's like, do you think that I could get better? And I said, well, I don't know. You've had 15 years of this scleroderma damaging your body, so better. But I think you can control your pain. Like, if anything else, control the neuropathy pain that comes with your disease. If I can control mine, you can control yours. So my mom is still to be determined. She's in that slow transition to get there. And I think my dad really needs to do it. But at the same time, I'm not a cardiologist and I don't want to be like, oh, yeah, it'll totally reduce your risk, Dad, and that clot will go away. Like, I can't say that because I don't know that. And there's not enough studies because nobody's, like, it's just not there. And I tell him, you need to go watch these doctors on YouTube. And people are hesitant. They're like, but they're on YouTube. Like, and I'm like, but they're real doctors and they have really great advice. And, it's hard to explain to people. They're doing this for free because they want to heal humanity. They want to heal people. So they are putting all this information out there for free. You're getting, I mean, I can't even tell you how many thousands and thousands of dollars worth of free medical advice that we're getting on a daily basis just by turning YouTube on and watching them. So I would say for somebody that wants to start it, watch Dr. Berry, watch Dr. Chafee, watch Dr. Baker, watch Dr. Kiltz, all of them. Watch them all. Watch all their videos. See what they have to say, Dr. Amara. Like, I have watched all of their videos. My husband, could turn YouTube off for a little while, please? Because there's so much information out there. And then watch people's testimonies. Carrie Mann, Bella, there are so many people out there that you can watch their testimonies and see that they're getting better. So I don't need a study because studies are skewed. I truly believe that now. Going down the rabbit hole of studies, I think they bury what they don't want to be seen and they only show what they want to be seen. And the ones that want to be seen are the ones that support drugs, not diet. So I would say, you don't need a study to say that this is the right thing to do. Go watch everybody's testimonies. Watch your channel. Dave, watch your channel and see how many hundreds of people have gotten better. I mean, that's what I would say. So lion diet and YouTube.
Yeah. And yeah, you hit it right there. Just, you don't need a study to tell you how good your body feels, right?
Right. I don't need any study to tell me. Because if I read the studies say that I'm not going to get better. The studies say that it's going to progress and that every once in a while somebody goes into remission from my disease, but not very often. So if I look at the studies, which are very few because it's a very rare disease, I might as well just put myself in a wheelchair now and continue to get drugs that kill my immune system for the rest of my life. And I'll tell you what, I take a ribeye over rituximab any day.
Yeah. Yeah. apart from the fact you can pronounce ribeye and like, yeah,
right?
when I hear you pronounce the drug, it's like, yeah, way too many letters and syllables. If I can't pronounce it, it shouldn't be in my body.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how can we reach out to you, Renee? Do you have a YouTube or any social media?
I do not have YouTube. I should, but I don't have time. I'm a full time student. Even though I'm retired, I'm a full time student taking two different courses. And so it's hard enough for me to keep up with my Instagram. So my Instagram is eating meat to walk. And that's the only place that I currently am. I maybe one day will be able to do YouTube. I just don't know that I have enough to say yet. To have a YouTube channel. But what I am doing is I am going on every interview that I can go on because I want people to hear my story. I want people to know that there's hope out there. And if I can reach one person, and the really cool thing is, after one of my interviews, I actually got in touch with somebody in Vietnam. It's really awesome how we don't speak the same language, but Instagram will translate our languages for us. And she is 3 years into carnivore and has cured her CIDP, completely cured it. She has zero symptoms from it. So she is so we all give each other hope because she gave me hope. I mean, I didn't. That was the first person that I discovered that had my disease and that had cured it. And so if I can pass that forward to somebody else, so I'm chronicling my journey on my Instagram and giving updates, but that is really the only place that I am right now. That and in school.
No worries. Well, I'll link to your Instagram in the show notes. Renee, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. I really appreciate your time.
You are so welcome, and thank you so much for getting our stories out there. And because you give so much hope to so many people by sharing these stories. And that's what we need to have this food revolution happen and to make it, to overhaul our entire food industry. It's going to be people like you who are spreading spreading the word. So thank you, Dave, for what you do.